everybody and welcome to the flute practice. We are on the second part of making friends with your metronome, and today we are really going to dive in a little deeper into why this guy is so great and how you can really use it to become like a practicing master. So let's go check it out. The first really great thing about him is that it's an objective, external beat that keeps you in check. I had a teacher that said, never trust yourself. And I know that sounds really horrible. But the truth is we are all prone to speeding up or slowing down or doing all kinds of weird rhythmic things all the time. I've been playing the flute for like 16 years and I am working professionally as a flutist, and I still make counting rhythmic mistakes if I am not careful. So you guys really want to use this thing to check yourself. And for that reason, because it's this nice objective thing, it is like a teacher. It really teaches us. It shows us where we're rushing. It shows us where we're slowing down. It helps us identify when sometimes we're just playing rhythms like wrong, flat out wrong. Particularly useful for that is the first beat emphasis, which this particular model doesn't actually have, but I know my cell phone metronome does have that. This is your other teacher, really, and if you don't have a teacher, well, then meet your new teacher. This guy is the best. One of the biggest things that this guy did for me was it helped me develop an internal sense of pulse. So I was really bad rhythmically. Like, my teachers used to pull their hair out at my absolute utter lack of any sense of rhythm whatsoever. And practicing with this guy consistently, repetitively, just keeping it going really helped me develop a sense of internal pulse where I can kind of start keeping a pulse going, and really my whole body is learning to experience it, but also without like tapping a foot or like bobbing along, but rather just developing a sense of that beat that just keeps going. The thing that I really use this guy for is when I have a concert coming up or even a rehearsal. I will never walk into a rehearsal or a concert without making sure that I know that I can play along to my metronome and play along to it well. If I can do that, I can be pretty sure that a first rehearsal with a pianist or accompanist or in an orchestra or band is going to go pretty well. If you haven't practiced with your metronome and you walk into a rehearsal, I can guarantee you're going to feel it, and you will feel the difference when you go into a rehearsal and you have done that. So this guy is your preparation, like absolute preparation tool. I personally, as I said, I don't think you should walk into any rehearsal ever without having done good work with your metronome. One of the really important things to bear in mind when it comes to metronome practice is to not let this guy become a dull, boring tool, where we are just kind of like being bogged down and we're like, oh, this like rhythmic, metronomic, very like mechanical beat. And my biggest and best trick for this is to really play musically with this guy. Play as musically as you can with it. So really exaggerating your phrasing and your dynamics. And the slower you do this, so really put it down really nice and slow and exaggerate all those phrasing and dynamics. I'd say the most important things to practice with the metronome are slow movements, actually. Yes, slow movements. You don't think you need it, but you really do. Put it on and make sure you're still getting all that beautiful phrasing and dynamics. And in this way, we're able to marry together these two kind of disciplines of keeping time and being very accurate and exact and correct, but still being incredibly musical and emotional and emotive. Really important. So this honestly changed this guy from being this like chore and this like thing to being this like, wow, this is really beautiful, and it frees you up to actually be more musical because you have this little guy that's just helping you with that kind of more mechanical, exact side of things. So I'm going to just chat a little bit about how to use this guy. Now, the first thing you want to make sure is that you can just follow a basic beat. Really important. I've done a whole kind of beginner video on just following that basic beat. So if you're struggling to do that, I'm going to redirect you to that video again. Go check it out. Okay, I'm going to use a little passage from a piece of music to show you guys how to practice along with the metronome. I think this is going to be the best way. These are just a few ideas. I'm sure there are tons more ideas. I encourage you guys to comment down below. I'm going to be playing from Enesco's Presto, Cantabile and Presto, but I'm going to be playing just a bit of the Presto part just to give you guys an idea of what you can do here. So I'm setting my metronome. It is way too fast. Now, really important with metronome practice, always start slower rather than faster. Don't go like speeding into it. Start slowly and you can then speed it up. So I'm going to choose something that's I'm going to go down to 60, I think. It might be a little fast. Let's give it a try. Okay, so the first thing you can practice, sorry for the annoying metronome going there, is you're going to practice in different rhythms, but with your metronome on. So you're going to practice. For example, so that's just a simple dotted rhythm. You can do the reverse of that. And so on and so forth. I've done a whole video on those little tricky practice rhythms, so I'm going to guide you guys to that, and you can go check that out for some more advice and tips on how to practice in different rhythms. Another really lovely, good old-fashioned practice technique here is to start really nice and slow and then incrementally bump up that metronome. So here we are at 60. And then I would speed it up a little bit. And I'm slowly just notching it up like that. I even do this over several days. And then, I record every day how fast I'm getting, where it's still comfortable. If it's no longer comfortable, I stop and I kind of stop at that level. And then the next day, kind of stepping it up and up and up. Really nice little way to use this guy. Kind of in combination with that is to actually change the speed faster and slower. So to, for example, go really nice and fast, for example, and then go right back down to something really slow. Why this technique is so great is because you are actually training yourself to play at those different speeds, and you are really getting in control of your fingers and of your tongue and everything that's going on, rather than just somehow going along with what's happening. It's such a nice technique to jump around with the speeds, particularly nice when you're feeling more comfortable with the passage, but you're just needing to kind of polish it off properly. I think generally I would practice a piece like this the whole way through on a slow kind of a pulse, practicing with that metronome and seeing where I'm kind of speeding up and slowing down. It's so great because it just adds that tiny little bit of extra pressure that really allows you to kind of feel what it feels like to almost perform it a little bit or play it with something else or somebody else. And it highlights immediately where the problems are, because suddenly with that little bit of extra pressure and something kind of just chasing your tail down a little bit, you get stressed out about those fast, crazy passages. So turn that metronome speed down and go over those tricky passages with the metronome, slowly speeding it up. And then experience. You play that piece through again with the metronome on, it feels so much easier. And I can promise you, when you hit that concert or that rehearsal, you are going to feel much more on top of your game and like, yeah, got this. One of the other really great practice techniques on the metronome is to practice in smaller beats or even in bigger beats. So, for example, this Enesco, I could practice, where are we here? I could practice in the quaver beats instead. So I'm going to put it right up there and I'm going to practice my quaver beats. Really great for making sure that I am absolutely in time in those smaller units as well. But we can also practice in even bigger beats, and this is very helpful, especially in like slow movements sometimes where you want to kind of get those bigger, longer phrases, but even for semiquaver passages where we want to really start getting bigger phrases. So I'm thinking I like to sometimes, before I kind of start, is just hear the notes and hear the subdivisions in my brain, just because you kind of got to first get into feeling it and then kind of go for it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So here I'm getting those two big beats. 1, 2. And now I'm actually practicing already getting at that internal sense of pulse, because I've got to place a second beat within that big beat and make sure I'm staying in time. And you can hear already, I'm able to get a little bit more of that phrasing out nicely with those bigger beats. So that is also a really helpful little practice strategy with this metronome, other way, is to practice in smaller units, so subdivision, and practicing in those larger kind of practice units as well. Really, 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 really helpful. And you can't do it without this guy, so you got to do it. There are a few things that are really important to practice with a metronome, and one of them are your syncopated rhythms, even offbeat rhythms, any of those kind of things, and to really get used to and comfortable practicing and playing those kind of things. So you can start this off nice and slowly, and I did a little bit of this in the beginner video right at the end, so I'm not going to do too much repeat on that. I will link you guys with a timestamp to that video. But I'm going to kind of really step it up a little bit, and I'm going to show you how this can become quite a challenge and something that we really should work on in practice. So I'm going to go all the way up to 112 right now. So here I'm just playing on the little off beats. I'm trying to not breathe between each note, but rather just feeling that beat, ta, 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 each time, nicely just placing it. And then you can do the same thing, but this time with syncopated rhythm. So trying to not move too much there, trying to keep the musical line as best I can. Let's try it even longer. Getting really comfortable being on those off beats, and you can really even step it up faster. This is where it starts to become very challenging, and I only recommend this if you are really mastering playing it slowly. So it's very tricky, and at some point my brain feels like am I actually even still doing it? You kind of start to rely a little bit more on instinct, which isn't necessarily a good thing, so rather keep it slower and speed that up slowly. It was something that at some point I discovered I actually just had to practice. I was like, oh, like I just need to actually sit down and practice this. I was playing in orchestra and there was a lot of these kind of rhythms very fast, and I was like, wow, I'm really bad at this. So it's a simple little thing, but it needs to be practiced. This is a bit of like an inexhaustible topic, the importance and the wonders of this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful little device that we have and that we can and should use. I'm really going to encourage you guys, share your ideas below on what you do and how you practice with the metronome. I'm finding these comments that come in so helpful. I'm learning, and I know all of you guys learn. So if you haven't already, go check the comment section down below. Hopefully there are lots of really great ideas for other tips that you can use. Remember, this for me is a community of people. I am obviously, sharing my knowledge with you guys, but more than that, I want this to become a really lovely community where we can share and help each other along. And on that note, I want to encourage you guys to get involved in the other communities around this. There's a Facebook page you guys can like and be a part of. There's Instagram accounts where I also sometimes share stuff. And of course, my Patreon, which is a much more kind of tight-knit, focused community, which is a paid service, but really worth your while getting involved in. So go check out those spaces. The links are also down below. Until then, everybody, happy metronome practice, and see you next time.